My outlook was that I was a slave to my diabetes drugs, and it had been something since the day I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, and my doctor announced that I would be taking a certain drug daily for the rest of my life. I didn't like that, and I always in the back of my head wanted to believe that I could change something inside of me that would make that go away. And so going forward, I've always wanted to get off the drugs, but I've never found a way to do that, and nobody really gave me a program for doing that until I ran into Integrative Health of Chicago. I was a slave to my bike. I could eat all kinds of things, but I would have to put in a really good, strong 2 to 3 hours on the bike, doing pedaling anywhere from 25 to 40 miles a day. And that would help in a big way to keep my numbers in check. But I always had to do that. If there was a day that I couldn't be on my bike, my numbers would start shooting up a little bit because I wasn't really paying attention to the things that I was eating. Way more players than I ever suspected. And I think one of the most interesting things was I have had, my biggest issues have been fasting blood sugars that were always elevated. And I just figured that that was the way my body worked, and I would take my metformin instead of splitting and doing 500 milligrams twice a day. I was doing 1,000 milligrams once a day, and it was generally before I went to sleep. So while the metformin is telling my liver to knock it off and don't produce any more sugar, I'm coming into the morning with low sugars, and my adrenal glands, of all things, are saying, wait a minute, there's not enough sugar here, let's pump it up a little bit. So I'm doing one drug, the metformin, that absolutely battles against what the other things inside of my body are totally capable of working with.
So as far as blood sugars, where were they before you got here? How high would they get, or where would they average? Do you remember?
They were, to me, they were high. I've heard from a lot of people that they'd kill for even those numbers, but they'd shoot up into the 130, 140, 50 range a lot. You know, I'd have mornings where they were 110 or 118, but I really had to kill myself on the bike to do that. And this is I'm starting to expect under 110 readings, and it's whether I ride a bike or not. And I do that because of weather, and I haven't been on the bike for 8 days, and my numbers are still exactly where they're supposed to be and staying on the low side. So
where are you at now? So
I think we said my my nighttime readings, I think we're averaging at 108, and my fasting sugars were 104 or 105, something like that.
And how much biking is that?
That was without, I would usually do it every day. I might have biked 100 miles in a couple hundred miles in the last month and a half, where I would have done 400 or 500 miles. So it's, our exercise is great, but it's what you're putting in your body that really has a huge difference for this diabetes thing.
Okay, one more question. So if you were talking to somebody that was where you were at 3 months ago, 4 months ago, 6 months ago, what would you say to them?
Believe it, and follow it religiously. What they tell you to do, do it. You might stumble into some discomfort along the way, but do exactly what they tell you, and it'll be faster than you believe. I mean, they didn't tell me to get off my metformin, but I've been off it since Memorial Day weekend by accident, but it happened, and I thought, well, since I'm off it, let's stay off it and see how it goes. And that's since Memorial Day, and my numbers are all great. So just believe that it can be done, and follow it, and you'll be sitting here in 3 months or 4 months.